Welcome back to Joygasm, a video game and movie podcast. I'm Russ. He is Steve. And Master Chief has made a triumphant return in episode 253 today, December 11th, 2021. We're just missing that little magical 7. It would have been 117. Ooh. We are going to be going right into our topic of the day, which is the Halo Infinite impressions. So there's no need to fast forward to that little puppy. And we are, in fact, Twitter-pated, honored, and maybe even a little turned on a bit that Nick, a.k.a. Big Baby Moose, has made his triumphant return. So welcome, Nicholas. It is so good to see you and your demeanor, your
beardness,
your handsome, wonderful physique, godly Greek goodness. My goodness, this man.
Handsome.
Oh, if I was any lesser man, I would not be able to withhold and abstain myself.
Palms are getting all sweaty just looking at him.
Oh my goodness. Oh, well, welcome to the show, Nick. It is absolutely wonderful to see you. And it was, my goodness, video really does the soul good.
Bring us together.
It does.
Yes,
indeed.
it does. Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
Well, we have a whole lot to talk about in terms of what we have experienced in Halo so far.
Yeah.
The first thing, though, that I would love to kind of kick things off with is the order of operations in which they kind of are doling out these different features that, as rabid Halo players, we have kind of grown accustomed to just having everything together, right?
Right, yeah.
So
Definitely.
The first thing that we had experienced with Halo Infinite was that they had released the multiplayer feature.
Sure. Which
was kind of a surprise, right? Like if you think about how all of a sudden it was rather dropped into our lap, right?
Yeah.
Like when you had multiplayer all of a sudden come out, that was both exciting but also kind of inducing, because we're so conditioned to be able to have that. And when it came to multiplayer, there were a lot of different things that I think we all felt. And so I want to kick it over to Nick and be able to talk about just focusing on the multiplayer component. We'll get to like the campaign next, but just in terms of having them release the multiplayer, what has been your experience so far?
Well, it's starting at the very good, beginning is a good place to start, they say.
Indeed.
Heard that somewhere. Sound of Music, I think. Anyway, I digress. Yes, no, being that was the first thing to come out, we definitely should start there. And it was shocking. It was very surprising, just because normally we have the campaign first, giving you an opportunity to flesh things out, get a feel for the game again and get back into the Halo universe.
Yes.
Check out the new weapons.
Indeed.
And all the goodies, and especially that new grappling hook. Awesome, by the way. And kind of get a feel for it. And then you hop in the multiplayer. You got the rust shook off if you're an old man like me.
I like us too.
Right? And you find out that you suck. No, but you have
How
fun anyway.
exactly do you pistol whip again? I'm not quite sure.
I'm going to find a rock to throw at this guy in my day. Yeah, exactly.
You still have the bumper jumper setting. I used that in 2001.
I ain't gonna lie. I was looking for Boxer. It's not there anymore, and it threw me off. But apparently, I'm an old man. So, it was interesting because, you just kind of got thrown right into the fire.
Right.
The proverbial fire. So it made for a steep learning curve, number one. And then I would say that while it felt very much like Halo, the multiplayer, let's just start with the good. The multiplayer is clean. It's fast. It feels good. The guns all feel very awesome. The ones you're familiar with are going to feel as familiar as they ever had. And the new ones are all pretty unique and interesting and fun in their own ways. I already have a couple favorites, but it was, that part of it's really great. But then you also get in there and you see that there's two mode types, quick play and big team battle, and that's it. And I mean, I'm not sure exactly how many maps are available. I haven't seen anything that says what the total count is, but you and I talked about this earlier in the week. I think I've only seen 3 maps the entire time I played, and I've played a fair bit of multiplayer at this point. And that was kind of surprising because I was expecting to see a lot more of the traditional Halo variety. I mean, these games usually launch with 12 to 14 maps.
I mean, it's considerably more, right?
Well, I mean, granted, this is just the beta too. That whole multiplayer wasn't like the official launch of multiplayer. That was the multiplayer beta.
Well, and I think they did that as almost like kind of a safeguard, just in case like if some unforeseen show-stopping bug were to occur, they go, "Oh, it's beta." But then I think after a while, they then came out and said, "Oh, well, actually, this is considered like we're fully live now."
Yeah, that's what I had heard. It's that this is the fully live thing. And I mean, now granted, as soon as campaign dropped, I was all in on campaign. I have not touched multiplayer since. I can't verify that there are not any new maps. But I'll be curious once I finally go to get in there to see if there is more map variety. But yeah, limited maps, at least, even if it's just beta, it was limited maps. And you cannot choose modes. And choosing modes is, I mean, we've been doing that since day one. We're talking 20 years ago. 20 years ago. I mean, I bought an original Xbox for 2 games, and I got them right after it came out. I got it for Halo, and I got it for Trans World Surf. I really wish that game was backwards compatible. I digress. But yeah, and right from the get-go, I mean, you could set up matches, you could tweak a lot of the settings. It wasn't quite as tweakable as Halo 2, where we could make SWAT and stuff, but you could play whatever style multiplayer, match you wanted. And of course, long live LAN parties.
Yes.
Those were good days.
Those were the good old days.
My early Navy days. I did much landing, and it was a great time. And so to see that we don't have those features available to choose the kind of modes you want, especially given the fact that they've got these challenges you have to do, right? The challenges, your challenge might be get 3 oddball kills. You may not see an oddball match though for 6 matches because you can't pick it. Right. Or vice versa if you're trying to do something else. And so it could make
sorry to just jump in here.
No,
or even like
jump
vote
in
on the map. Because remember, you could vote on the map if you had a party of people or like maybe 12 people. You can all, and it says you go A, B, or C basically to different maps. You could all vote on what map you wanted to go to.
I remember that.
That's true.
And like if there was a certain map, they're like everybody thought, I don't want to go there. Like that's a terrible map. You could vote against it, and then of course the majority would win of where.
That was a great idea.
It was a good idea.
I love that too. It had like a very like present, I don't know, desire from whoever it was you were partied up with on that server to be able to choose that. Why did they do? Oh my gosh! I totally forgot about that.
It could be because they don't have a whole lot of maps. I mean, so it's like, well, you want A. Or I mean, even if there was 2 choices, you could do it. But I mean, that's probably why. But they're just trying to randomize.
What about though the game types though? Because if you if you recall, like if you were playing in quick play or big team battle, like what Nick was talking about, you have I think somewhere in the vicinity of like 5 different game modes. So at the very least, they could have easily had some kind of voting structure. I love that voting structure. I'm so glad you brought that up. I totally
same here.
forgot about that.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. And that would solve the issue for choosing the kind of match you want right off the bat without necessarily having to have the full feature of custom playlists or individualized playlists. That's a really good point, Steve.
Well, and the other thing too is that and Nick touched upon this already, which is it's a little odd to all of us, I think, that we don't have really the ability to readily just choose, hey, I only want to play capture the flag, or hey, I only want to choose and play oddball, for instance. So my hope is that they will include some kind of support for that. But I did want to backtrack just a little bit because Nick touched on a number of really good points. One of which is the weapons themselves. So Nick and I had this conversation recently about how, traditionally speaking in a Halo game, you have both the campaign and the multiplayer released at the same time. And odds are a lot of folks will play the campaign first because we're curious about the narrative. We want to know what's going on with Master Chief. But also it's a way to be able to get introduced to any kind of new abilities or weapons or vehicles for that matter than the game may have. And I think that having the multiplayer released first kind of put us at a bit of a disconnect because, like, I know I can speak for myself. Like, I would come across a particular weapon that was brand new. I was excited to see the weapon. I wanted to test it out. But because I didn't have any practical application prior to playing it in multiplayer, I felt kind of like a foolish newbie, like, how does this work? And so then I get killed.
Yeah.
And I really wouldn't be able to really enjoy that weapon versus like in the past, like you would play through the entire campaign and you would have, you know, a relatively good amount of experience with each one of the weapons. So then by the time you decide to jump into multiplayer, you were proficient to a certain extent. Would you agree to that, Nick?
Oh, yeah. You're like Chow Yun Fat in a John Woo film. Throwback. There we go. You know, just guns blazing. Just going crazy because you know how everything works. Instead, you're more like the South Park character, the running with scissors pig. You're hoping you don't fall on the dang thing and kill yourself.
Exactly.
So, it's a bit of a, like I said, there's a bit of a learning curve because of the way that they rolled it out. And I think that you're right. Most of us, at least most people I know anyway, I don't want to speak for everybody, but most of us do start in the campaign. We play that first. You work out the bugs, you figure out all the cool tricks and how everything works. And then you go in and you're, like I said, you're Chow Yun Fat. Bang, bang.
Because I can say for myself, like, since I've been playing in the campaign now, I probably have, I don't know, something like 15, 20 hours invested so far into the campaign. My goodness, like, I have such a better understanding of some of the weapons. And that's not saying all the weapons. There are still several weapons I either have barely tried or really don't have any kind of understanding as to how to, like, correctly leverage them. But having said that, for instance, like, you know, the Hydra, for instance, is I thought about it because Nick was actually telling me about this, but the Hydra has two different modes that you could switch between, one of which has the homing target on there. What's interesting about that is that I think it was in Halo 4, I want to say, didn't the rocket launcher used to have some kind of targeting system?
Started
where
in Halo 2.
Was it Halo 2?
Halo 2.
Yeah.
Halo 2, the spanker did target, and then later on they took that feature away.
Right. Yeah. So having said that, it's like they literally wanted to bring that feature back, which I'm so glad they did. I think it's actually really cool that they have applied it to a new weapon. You have that kind of switch feature, which, Nick, offhand, do you know what the non-tracking mode does? Is there any kind of like advantage to it, or
it seems that I haven't like timed it, but it seems like the projectile flies a little faster and it goes straight. So it fires like a traditional gun, but it's like a rocket propelled grenade essentially at that point. It doesn't seem to be any damage buffs or anything like that, but you can just quickly pop off. So what I've done playing with it is that I'll use that mode in tighter corridors where I'm more likely to be closer to something, where I don't have the time to let it acquire a target, because that takes a little bit. Right. So sometimes you just need to blast, and you can kind of use it in that mid range without hurting yourself and kind of just fire it like a traditional gun. I love that thing so much. It's
have
my
you tried that, Steve? Have you tried the Hydra?
I have not.
Oh boy, you're.
No. I'll say so. I haven't locked onto a target. I mean, I think I'm actually a bit behind you guys. So yeah, I've just blown stuff up, just whatever.
just boom.
Boom, there go the enemies. Gone.
How many hours would you say you have in campaign so far?
One. No, I'm just kidding.
What? I was like,
oh my gosh.
I probably have.
I've been to the start screen.
I probably have about. I customized my character. I think I have about 3 or 4 hours.
3 or 4. So you're like newborn still.
You're a little chocolate baby.
I basically just landed outside. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
Wow. Boys.
So there are a number of different weapons and whatnot which you have not been introduced to, at least through campaign. You probably have stumbled upon them in multiplayer. Like have you actually? Do you know which weapon we're talking about with the Hydra?
Rocket launcher.
He's like, it's a gun.
It's a gun that shoots snakes with rocket packs that go flying towards the enemy and bite them.
No. I want this now.
No.
I want this now.
It's the Medusa skin.
Okay. Anyway, you're in for a treat when you actually get to try out that particular weapon. And there are other weapons as well. But I don't want to get too down that rabbit hole because we have like an absolute metric ton to talk about with this game itself. So before we actually go really into the campaign side of things, sticking with multiplayer, what do you guys think of the maps? Let's start with you, Steve.
Oh, well, the maps are, in my opinion, a little bit plain. There's, I mean, when I remember playing Halo 1, 2, and 3 and Reach and ODST, the maps seem to be a little bit more lively, colorful, interesting, kind of random in a way. And these kind of just seem to be a bit stamped out. You're kind of just wandering around from, the kind of basic terrains. You have some inside corridors. And that's kind of sort of it, There's nothing much to really. Now, I'll pause there and say, have there been more variety, the maps might be a bit more interesting. But the maps that we have with the limited play types, it's just a bit plain Jane, kind of boring, I would say.
Nick, what is your assessment of the multiplayer maps thus far?
I would say when it comes to like a color palette kind of thing, I tend to agree with Steve that they don't pop quite. They don't pop. Yeah, they don't pop. They don't pop quite the way some of the other ones. Like there's one of the maps that we played a bunch with Big Team Battle. I can't recall what it's actually named, but it reminded me of Blood Gulch, and I mentioned that while we played. Right. But Blood Gulch is a I mean, that's like the quintessential Halo map that's been remade in a number of games. And you got the great big green valley, the big red cliffs, and corridors and things. And there's a lot of variety to the color palette. Whereas the one, even though it had the two bases at the side that you start on with the launchers and everything, it's a very muted palette. It's forest greens, slate gray for the stone cliffs, and some dirt tones, and that's pretty much it. A couple little areas where you go into corridors, and there's kind of more of that Halo-esque Forerunner interior briefly. Now, that being said, though, I love the map design. Actually, the thing I liked a lot about it is that there was a lot more obstacles. So I feel like there was a lot more opportunity, even on a large map, to have that kind of intermediate play. Sometimes in some of the maps that they've had, and Blood Gulch is another good example of that. If you get caught out in the middle, good luck, because you got vehicles running around that can take you out. You got snipers that can see you clear dang across the map.
That'll be me.
For that particular map, you had to actually move forward and find a perch, and you couldn't just sit back in your base and snipe to the other base. And I think that makes for a really good design because it allows a variety of players to play the way and style that they like. The other map that stands out to me were the two interior maps, which were really good for like oddball. The few that I got to play matches in those particular maps were great. The corridors are small, it's cramped, it's tight. You can immediately see somebody. People can't get too far away before you can pick them back up again on your radar. And so it makes for that good frenetic pace that you like to have. So yeah, I like the design, but aesthetically, they haven't jumped out. I will say with one exception, that's going back to the one that reminded me of Blood Gulch. I found a door, and I remember I was yelling because I was like, oh my gosh, I just opened this door. Because you have these little AIs that you carry around with you now. They're like knockoff Cortanas that aren't nearly as good. Right. They kind of make quips while you play. And I found this thing, and it let me put my AI on it, and it took a while. I had a little timer, it's going right. The first time I tried to do it, I got killed. Second time I got the thing open, I go inside, there's like a rocket launcher, that Hydra gun was in there, like it was loaded with stuff. And so it rewarded me for staying there, taking the time to open the door.
Right. And
then go in and get all the goodies. And then I went on a small old man rampage, which means I killed about 2 people before I died. But yeah, so that happened. But that was cool because that's not something I've seen really in the other games. So kind of having little hidden areas that, if you're willing to take the time and poke around, you can find something cool. I thought that was a nice little touch too, though.
Yeah, no, I think that actually is well worth mentioning because I was present when Nick did that little hacking thing, which I was like, hey, what? It's so funny when you're like in your Master Chief or Spartan armor and you walk over, you're like, hey, what's going on? You got a sandwich or what? You see him.
People are dying all around you. You're like, what's that?
This is pretty good. Like, hey, guys, stop shooting. Come over here, check this out.
Yeah, really.
Anyway, yeah, like I agree with a lot of what both of you have said in terms of so the smaller maps seem to have a bit more of like a visual aesthetic that I think has I don't know, like more visual interest going on. If I think of like the big team battle maps, it's not that they're not good looking. They are very good looking. And to Nick's point, there are just a lot of attention to the various ways that you can have nooks and crannies. So you can have more of that close encounter combat. You can also have mid-range combat. And to a certain degree, you can have even long-range combat. One of the things that comes to mind for me is when I think of Halo, I think about how we've had Halo for 20 years now, and they have a huge catalog of previously created maps from all the different games. It's
true.
Like I for one would have loved to see 343, and this is not like a lost cause. They can totally do this, in the near future if they wanted to. But literally take all of the most popular maps from all the previous Halo multiplayer games and be able to bring that into Halo Infinite with a nice facelift. And that would just really, I think, excite the fans. It would instantaneously expand the variety of different multiplayer maps. I mean, I got Hang 'em High. Like, who doesn't want to play a next gen version of Hang 'em High?
There you
right?
go.
So yeah, that I think is
especially with grappling hooks.
Especially with grappling hooks.
Have you had much experience with the
Yes,
grappling hook?
as a matter of fact. But I remember you saying in the multiplayer where you went, "Oh, this grappling hook is great."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Awesome! What button is it? 'Cause I can't get it to work." And I'm like, "Everyone's using grappling hooks, but me." And I was wandering around just trying to jump on that rock. Okay, jump on that rock. How can I get up there? So I yes, now I know, but before I didn't have a clue.
And this is a great example of what we just discussed earlier about how when you get thrown into multiplayer first as opposed to campaign, obviously we have no idea how to utilize the grappling hook. We don't even know what button it is, right? And they have like a number of different abilities, which actually makes the combat experience of Halo feel more evolved when it comes to like those different types of abilities you can assign. And if you want to drop a shield, or if you want to dash, or if you want to use your grapple hook, whatever it is, like they've really done a mindful job of coming up with these thoughtful ways of giving you a bit more to work with. But I think in terms of what you're talking about, like Nick and I were discussing the other day about the grapple hook in terms of how we at first would be using it just to like climb, like what you're talking about. So like, not only does Halo Infinite have the grapple hook ability, but it also has clamber, which if you notice, if you like jump up and you don't quite make it, Master Chief will just take his hand and he'll just lift himself up over the ledge. It's called clamber. So what's really nice about that is that with the grapple hook, it suddenly makes you way more mobile than you once were in previous Halo games. But also too, as I was going through campaign, I suddenly realized, hey, this isn't just for swinging around like Spider-Man.
I was going to say Master Chief has become Spider-Man.
Or better yet, Batman.
Batman.
But see, the thing is, though, is that, like, for instance, I was telling Nick about this one particular firefight that I had in campaign where I was pinned down by a bunch of elites and grunts and brutes and whatnot.
All the baddies.
The typical trifecta of the baddies in Halo. But in terms of what was going on, so I was behind like some sort of canister or whatever, and I couldn't move. My shields were gone, and I look over and I see a plasma grenade on the ground. I'm thinking, if I could only get that, then I'd be able to wiggle out of the situation.
Yeah.
I suddenly decide maybe I should try the grapple hook.
Yep.
It works. Like you can aim your grapple hook at the plasma grenade and it will retrieve it for you. The same thing with any kind of weapon that's laying around. That is freaking awesome. What say you, Nick?
Absolutely. Like it completely changes the way that you like enter combat. I had a similar situation where I actually was fighting a particularly nasty elite as you get a little bit further in the campaign. I won't spoil too much. And I ran out of ammo on both guns. And I'm like, oh crap. And I'm literally like running around in a circle like, and like I come around the corner and I see one of the little like, ammo weapon stands that they have in the game. And I'm just like, shoot off my grappling hook and snatch a gun off the thing and turn around like Rambo.
And turns out to be the plasma pistol. You're like,
hey, I would have taken anything. I'd have taken that rock I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, right.
Anything at all. But it was awesome. It's like it just completely changes the way you engage in a firefight, and it was just an awesome moment, honestly. Just an incredible moment. And you can do the same thing in multiplayer too. You can snatch a weapon from behind cover. It works exactly the same way. Snag a grenade, they've got these like little coils or like barrels. You can pull those to you and then throw them like a grenade.
And don't forget too about how the grapple hook can also be used to hijack vehicles, which I have successfully pulled off in multiplayer. It's very accessible. It's very easy to do, but mostly it's just gratifying. Like you do it and you're like, man, I feel awesome.
Yeah. Well, did you have to? So let me ask you this, because I've yet to do it. There was a time when we were playing the multiplayer and you're like, oh, can we hijack vehicles? And then right 2 seconds after that, either you did or Nick did. So did you have to like hold down the B button to hijack the vehicle, or did you have to grapple it in order to hijack it?
So there are two different ways. You can use the grapple hook, which all you have to do is aim it at the driver's side kind of door area, and then it just handles it for you. It's automated. It's great. The other way is you hold down the X button.
Just like
how you've always done. Yeah. So let's segue from that. I know we can talk a whole lot more about the multiplayer.
The microtransactions and all that stuff.
Yeah, forget that stuff.
Well, and you know what? Okay, so before we jump in, I'm glad you guys mentioned that.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
Here to help, guys.
Before we actually jump into the campaign, let's talk about the battle pass portion itself, because that more often than not is kind of focused a bit toward the multiplayer. So this is kind of new territory for 343 Industries and for Halo fans, in the sense that we really haven't had some sort of like robust battle pass. I know they were kind of flirting with it a bit when it came to Halo 5, but this really has taken a noticeable push into more of like what we have seen from like Call of Duty, for example, or Fortnite, that sort of thing. Nick, I want to kick it over to you because you have a lot of thoughts on this kind of structure. I know that like for you and I, we have both decided to spend like, I know for me, I bought like the $24 battle pass option thing. Yeah. But what I'd like to do is be able to hear from you just your thoughts on what they've done so far with battle pass.
Okay. I also ended up getting the $24 battle pass and was initially not going to, but they quickly came out and made a few changes that sort of softened my stance, because initially my stance is like, this is ridiculous. There was so much locked in that store. The stuff that was in the battle pass was kind of cool, but then there was stuff that was in the store. The two don't overlap. So if you want one, you got to buy one. If you want the other, you got to buy the other. You don't really get to get both just by getting the battle pass. So I'm kind of like looking at that. And then the grind initially with the XP was it was miserable. It was awful. It
was a joke. Let's be real.
I mean, and I'm just like, dude, they were literally nickel and diming us to death on a mode that normally is included with our $60 purchase.
Right.
And so that was my initial impression. Well, 343, to their credit, quickly came out. They're like, hey, we're going to boost the experience. We're going to give you like, a 600% increase for this many matches, 300 for this, 100 for this. And made it so it feels better. You actually feel like you're gaining levels. If you play 6 to 10 matches a day, you feel like you're getting something accomplished. You play more, then hey, more power to you. It has diminishing returns the longer you play. But the fact that they're like, okay, let's do something to make it so the people that have got a battle pass, they're actually unlocking things at a relatively decent clip. They haven't said much about making edits to the store as far as the price of things. They're not super duper expensive, but they're spendy. And from I think I saw a Reddit post, and they were saying that if you buy everything and paid for your battle pass and maxed everything out, it's something like over $1,000.
Oh, wow.
So think about that for a minute, right? We normally pay, if you get the special edition, not including like one of the statues like I got back there, but just like, the premium edition with the DLCs in the past, you're getting the entire game, you're getting the full multiplayer suite, you're getting Forge mode, you're getting theater mode, you're getting every map, all of the Spartan armors there for you to unlock, just play. And as you gain XP in matches, you unlock new parts of your Spartan armors. They're all there. Now we've split that in half and put so much of it behind a paywall. I ain't gonna lie, it didn't sit real good with me, even with the changes they were making. I will say that I've softened even more on that, and I'll talk about that when we get to talking about the campaign mode. But it's an interesting choice. It's just an interesting choice, but this seems to be the wave of the future, is find a way to make a live game as a service, find a way to monetize it so you can make way more than you ever would just selling a game and selling DLCs, and hope to God that a crap ton of whales come to fill your coffers with sweet moolah. And all too often that is what happens. And so, but I will say this though, you can play this game and never spend a dime. And the multiplayer is clean cut, awesome, fast, fun, and you can have a great time. And so for the person who doesn't have a lot of money but wants to play Halo, maybe falling on hard times, like you can just jump in and just have a blast. And if you don't care about customization, it ain't gonna hurt you one bit. Now, I am a customization junkie. I guess it's my art background, but I have to have the things. So I'm probably gonna be broke. I wouldn't say I'm a whale territory, but I won't be able to help myself. Something cool come out and be like, oh, I gotta have that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the gal in Napoleon Dynamite with the ship in a bottle. I want that. That's me. That's pretty much me. So, but yeah, it is an interesting choice. But and of course, you and I talked about this, and like I said, when we get to campaign, I'll elaborate more. My concern was, now that you're taking half of what I normally pay for away,
right?
What is offered to me in return for the same amount of money? And the thing is, you can't think of the game as free just because you have Game Pass. It's still not free. You're still paying for it. So whether you pay the $59 on top of that because you love the game and want to always have it, or you're just using Game Pass to play the campaign, you're paying for the title. And so I had some concerns. And as we were going in, the weeks were counting down to launch, that was kind of on my mind. And I'll leave it at that. You guys can elaborate, and I'll talk more about my thoughts when we get to the campaign.
Sounds good to me. Steve, what were your thoughts on some of the... I don't even think you've bought anything through Battle Pass.
Yeah, I got the 24-cent pack.
24-cent pack. But just generally speaking, I have a pretty good idea of
Do you, Russ?
What you're about to say. But please, Steve, give us your thoughts.
I think it's a bunch of balderdash. Russ, so they have a lot of cool stuff to get. I can see that.
Yeah.
I am not an artsy fartsy guy. I can appreciate. Hey,
he is a fartsy guy.
That is yes. I am a fartsy guy. I can appreciate others' art, Russ. I can appreciate yours, Nick's.
Thank you.
343's. But you know what? When it comes down to it, what really kind of made me feel like I bit the rotten end of an apple is they go, oh, hey, congratulations, you got all this experience. We're going to give this to you. And I go, oh, great, thanks, 343. And then I go, I'd like to see what I got. They go, actually, no, we're giving it to you if you pay us. So I'm like, well, then wouldn't it be a purchase? Like not something I've earned? Well, no, you've earned it, except it's locked behind the paywall. So you have to pay for it. It's like, but I didn't earn it then. So like, what are you trying to tease me with? You know, I don't like that.
I think what their intent was is they wanted to give like a kind of a glimpse or a teaser, like a sneak peek as to like, okay, here are the different things that are available, so that way you can browse if you want to. But then if you actually want some of the items, then you'd either have to pay for them individually or buy a battle pass, that sort of thing. And I think for me, this is kind of like acts as like a kind of a ribbon around what both of you gentlemen have been saying. But as Halo players who, once again, Halo has been around for 20 years. And so they have, first it was Bungie and then 343. They have cultivated a fan base and have conditioned us to expect certain types of things to just be included with the game. And I think that that's at the crux of this whole entire situation is, in the past, you would have the campaign with the multiplayer, with the co-op, which we haven't even gotten to yet, with all of these customization options that were packaged within a $65 game. And what we've seen now is they have effectively separated, they've siloed or segregated these different features that we have grown accustomed to enjoying just as one complete package, and are now attempting to, well, not with every part necessarily, but like it's odd to me how they have decided to separate what normally just kind of organically fits together as a whole. And I think that's one of the big things too about how, like if you're looking at the customization options, before I spent money on the battle pass, I couldn't even change the color of my Spartan in multiplayer.
You could do that.
I had
You can
one
change it to a
color
couple.
option.
You could change it for Russ.
If I compare
There's
it
like
to like
eight colors you could choose. That was it.
See, it was locked for me though. Like I didn't see. I had like the color blue or something I could change to, and that was it. Like everything else, I saw all the color options there, but they were all locked. So maybe I was in the wrong spot. I don't know. But anyway, going to like some of the older Halo games themselves, that was all readily available. Like you could go through and through your gameplay performance, you would eventually through XP unlock various things. Totally fair, works out great. So it is interesting how they are going through this direction, and it does make me wonder, what does the Halo fan collective community think of it, and how are they going to respond to it? And I do think it is wise that they don't have any kind of pay to win schemes in place. I think that would just devastate their entire platform altogether. It's nice that they are keeping it as more of like the cosmetics and that sort of thing.
The thing is with the cosmetics, though, like if you think of a game such as like Anthem, right? You're always going to be looking at your character, and so you can admire how your character looks. You can admire how, okay, I've chosen this armor setup, I've chosen this color scheme, I've selected and choose different things, and I'm looking at my character throughout the entire game and admiring it.
Yeah.
When you're playing Halo, you're just looking at your character through the visor, and the times that you're actually seeing your character beyond the customization part is just the beginning of the game when he's doing his little like animation or at the end. And so, like to me, Nick, that's worth it to him. Awesome. To me, it's not worth spending money on.
That's a really good point because it's a first person. Oh yeah, man. Steve Perkins. Steve.
I'll be quiet again until I think of something good.
But no, it's a really good point because, on the one hand, you're wanting to customize your character because you want to identify and basically have it be a unique Spartan, right? But the only times you're going to be seeing your Spartan is in the character customization screen, or for the 10 seconds that they have that little intro where everyone's kind of gearing up to battle. Other than that, the only time you're going to see it, I
see my body a lot when I'm dead. I look great, by the way.
Such a handsome corpse.
So great.
The ragdoll physics make me look amazing in some of those positions when I die.
That cod piece.
Look at that. Oh, man, such nice colored glutes there.
But I mean that is a really good point. I think.
Thanks, Russ.
Well, I say that because for myself, I think Nick is the same way. We're accustomed to being able to have these options readily available to us in previous Halo games, and then on top of that, we just like to be able to customize our character, and if for nothing else, it's a fun thing to do. The only other thing I will add to what you said is that even though we can't see ourselves when we're playing the game, the enemy can.
So you want to pay to make the enemy jealous as he shoots you.
Look good, die good. All right, bro.
Okay. All right. Fine.
Yeah. Just, you need to think of these unlocks in a different way. You're not spending money, Steve. You're just making little, Benjamin Franklin shaped keys that unlock it.
There you go.
You're going out glamorously.
Yeah.
So moving from that and transitioning over to campaign, the first thing I want to address is the fact that, again, going back to the whole separation, siloing of different features and whatnot, the co-op of campaign is not available at launch. Apparently, the earliest that we're going to be seeing this is going to be May of 2022, which is roughly 5 months from now. That is a surprise because, once again, traditionally speaking, when it comes to Halo, you have the co-op experience readily available so that you and 3 other buddies can go through the narrative together. and have a blast doing so. I mean, that was one of the cornerstones of any given Halo game in the past. It really like set it apart. In fact, for myself, I was honestly thinking about how for the next gen Halo game, it would be awesome to go beyond 4-player co-op, maybe have 8-player co-op or 16-player
like
co-op.
a ton more enemies. Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine like
Sounds great.
seeing an entire battleground full of Spartans, instead of doing big team battle where you're fighting each other, you'd have like this basically like a huge platoon of Spartans going through the narrative. How awesome would that be?
Freaking
Yeah, it's
awesome,
like Firefight the game.
There you go.
So that's something that I think is a bit confusing. It's a head scratcher for sure, because once again, and we really haven't talked about this much, 343 delayed their game by 1 whole year because of the fan response previously, which tells all of us that they were ready to drop this game last year and not have these features ready to go, which makes, it begs the question, does that mean that co-op would have taken like a year and a half before they would release it in the game? So there are certain unanswered questions that hopefully 343 will be able to casually address, because again, it is kind of odd that like, if you think about the source code, obviously every game has certain types of updates and changes made to their source code. But by and large, like when you look at a lot of what Halo is, they're reusing quite a bit of that same source code. So it's not like they're having to completely reinvent the wheel, though I will say in terms of the open world, that is a heavy lift. There is a lot of new types of action items that the team has to go through. Having said that, though, campaign. Nick, what has been your experience of the campaign so far?
Well, real quick on the co-op thing, too. I just want to throw us in because I've just been thinking about it ever since I found out it wasn't going to be a thing. We're in the middle of COVID. We're in the middle of being as segregated as a people at any time that probably anybody can recall. How nice would it have been to be able to get the three of us online and rock through this campaign,
awesome.
which is amazing.
Yeah.
Rock through it together. This open world, all three of us run in different directions, flanking from all over the place because it's expansive. This place is huge. It's just, I get that eventually we're going to be able to, but I find myself thinking, as disappointing as it is when a game does not release on the schedule that we all thought it was, how much more disappointing it is to me when a game releases even late and not finished. Mm-hmm. Because you're right. 20 years, we've got these expectations. We got these expectations of what a Halo game is. And a lot of the things that make a Halo game Halo is couch co-op, and it's not there. And I just think in light of the particular situation we find ourselves in as a world, missed opportunity big time. That's not a decision I would have made. That would have prioritized the co-op, but enough on that. Campaign itself. So going back to what I was saying with the multiplayer section, with the separation of multiplayer as a free to play from the campaign, my concern being, what am I paying my $60 for, my $65 or whatever after tax, was that I was going to get probably this, I don't know, if a typical campaign, I think usually it'd take me about 20 hours roughly to play through, 20, 25. If I'm really, now granted, I have to find everything. So I like to go find the skulls on my own and look for Easter eggs. So I tend to take a lot longer to complete levels. So sometimes it can be even as much as 30 hours, but I'm going, okay, well, that's great. But normally I have this other suite that's there for me, like we talked about with all the unlocks, then I can go and do that once I've done all my exploring and campaign. Now all I've got is a campaign for 60. It softened the blow because that place is freaking huge. It is massive. You can go freaking everywhere. And I'm like Indiana Jones, man. I gotta find everything, and I need to stick it in a museum. All right, I'm gonna find all the stuff.
Oh yeah.
So far, I've probably only played through, like, as far as like actual quote unquote missions, I think I've only been through 3 missions. I think so far, maybe 4. I've managed to find several skulls on my own. I found some crazy Easter egg where I blew up a landing pad with an airstrike completely by accident, had no idea what I was doing, just because I was exploring. And on top of that, I have to say that from a narrative standpoint, the narrative is interesting, but it also gives you a lot of room to breathe. where you don't necessarily feel like, well, I just did this one part of the main story mission. I need to go do the next part, because as you're going to that, things are popping up. Oh, Bravo team's over here. You need to go save them. And you go over there and there's a bunch of Marines being held captive and you let them loose. Now they're running with you. And I'm going to spend so much time in this sandbox. I wouldn't be surprised if by the time I'm done playing and make it through the campaign, if I don't have somewhere between 60 and 100 hours.
Yeah.
And it may even be more. I don't know. It's like hard to say because I don't really have a real good grasp on just how long the overall main campaign is. But like, because I like to look at everything and I literally try to get everywhere. I've actually found some places where you can get out of the map and it brings up the old Halo. You're outside the map bounds. Get back in. But there's not many places like that.
Truman Show?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. I found the blue wall.
Yeah.
But there aren't many places like that. Most everything you can see, you can go there.
Right.
And like, I mean, I'm a big Metroid fan. I love Castlevania. I love games that they incentivize you to be curious and explore. And they have nailed that while still having amazing Halo combat. They've recaptured. I got to say, the last two games wasn't feeling really hot on these first two titles that 343 put out. They have captured their magic in this one thus far. And I'm not even done with it. I'm probably not even halfway done. And I'm already just like completely hooked in. I've been waiting for a next gen experience. Hadn't had a chance to play the new Forza. I hear that's pretty awesome. But so this is the first thing that I played that really has just captured me. And I'm like, this is a next gen game, hands down. Just phenomenal. Really enjoy the open sandbox. I think it's such a refreshing way to play this game. And I mean, Halo was always kind of open anyway. Yeah. But this is a whole, I mean, it's like they took that and cranked it up to 100.
It's very true. You know, when I started playing through the campaign of this, was one of the things that came to mind was how I was very disappointed with Halo 5's campaign and its narrative, and how I remember you were sitting on the couch next to me. And at one point I turned to you and I said, this doesn't feel like Halo.
Right.
And what I was talking about was the actual like gameplay mechanics. Like for some reason they had changed all these different things, and that combined even with the story itself, the story just was a flawed approach when it comes to the world of Halo. And it wasn't until the very end of Halo 5 that suddenly, remember you were with me even when I beat the game, how like I suddenly go, oh, okay, now this part is starting to feel more like the Halo I know. Why are they only doing that for the last third of the game? This is bizarre. So it's interesting because with Halo 4, I personally was a fan of Halo 4. I really liked the creative risks that they took with introducing the Forerunners as a new type of enemy class, because we have been through the Covenant time and again, and have really run its course. And I think that's one of the things that I find for myself with this game. That was one of the things I was kind of just wincing a little bit on, was that once again, we've had, I think, at least 7 Halo games, all of which have the Covenant in, with, you know, Halo 4 really kind of making an earnest attempt to like, you know, spend more time with the Forerunners. So when I saw that the Covenant once again was in Halo Infinite, and once again we're at a Halo ring, it's weird how 343 is in this position where it's almost like they are apprehensive about wanting to step outside of what's already been proven, like what the safe space is, and do something new. And at the same time, they do want to do that. And so it's, you know, when I see that we're back at the Halo ring, and to Nick's point, you know, you have these really beautiful graphics. I mean, it is next gen. The more I've played, like I said, I've put in probably between 15 to 20 hours of campaign gameplay. So I've seen a nice chunk of the new Halo ring. It is a very beautiful map, well fleshed out. But again, it calls back to like Halo 1 and Halo 3, really. Like if I think about like, you know, what were the gameplay experiences like? Where did you go? That sort of thing. I mean, this really does feel like the original Halo ring on steroids, because it's simply larger. There's more there, obviously. Having said all that, though, the game itself, like what Nick was talking about, the gameplay is totally back to its Halo roots, which I'm so relieved and thrilled about because I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to rekindle that, and they really honestly have. And this speaks to some of the successes that 343 has had, especially when it comes to the new weapons, because obviously as a Halo player, we all want to be able to experience new weapons added to the catalog, right? The roster.
Oh yeah.
And every game, or not every game, every weapon every game that I've weaponed, every weapon that I've tried out has in fact been a joy to play with. Like it has its own type of mechanics, it has its own pacing, it has its own way for you to strategize. And when you combine that with the sheer open world approach to the environment itself, you suddenly, like to Nick's point also, you do in fact have a sandbox type of experience where every type of encounter you come up on, you can decide what you want to do. And that really was kind of, if you think of Halo 1, for instance, that was the seed, wasn't it? Like when you were going around the Halo ring, it was its own sandbox that you could, if you wanted to approach it with a vehicle, which vehicle do you want to approach it with?
Go through the corridors with the warthog.
You totally could. Like, and I think that was the thing, was that the game itself, the original Halo, really encouraged players to be able to tinker with it. So that's why you had the community like doing all kinds of crazy stuff, like trying to get Scorpion tanks and, previously thought impossible places, or you stack up a bunch of Master Chiefs and like put a bunch of grenades at the base and blow it up and see how high they all fly and that sort of thing. So it very much was a sandbox in its own right. But looking at what they have done here, I have noticed that the longer I'm playing the campaign, the less I care that the Covenant are there. There is something that I will not say now that does actually address that particular concern, so I'll just leave it at that. But on top of that, when I'm combating the brutes or whatever, it's very obvious that the formula of how they respond, what their personas are, how you engage them, how they engage you, is very satisfying.
Oh, and they're scary again.
Them and
the elites are scary, man. They will wreck you.
They will. They will definitely wreck you. What I do find, not necessarily, maybe I'll say disappointing, is from a visual aesthetic standpoint. There has been a lot of pains made to the world to make it look more real. I mean, man, as you go along, like there are like sunsets that happen. Like to give you an idea, like where you are, there is this. You'll see the Infinity ship that's crash landed along the mountainside. Along the mountainside.
Smoke is ruin. Yes.
Exactly. And Nick brought up a good point about this, because when I first was there, I just figured, oh, that's just part of the window dressing, right? It's part of the background prop decoration, if you will. But then Nick brought up the point, no, you can actually get on that. You can actually go over to the mountain, make your way up, which I ended up doing. And I was like, oh my goodness, like that becomes tangible. Like I can actually reach that particular
I see what you
part of the
did.
world. So it takes definitely like what people were excited about with regards to Zelda Breath of the Wild, in terms of like, hey, if I see something in the distance, I can get there. They have incorporated that into Halo Infinite, which is awesome. And then on top of that, being able to like I said, see like a sunset or sunrise or whatever. Even at nighttime, you see little like green fireflies floating around and whatnot. They've really created this immersive atmosphere, which I applaud them for. And one additional comment about the downed ship, and I haven't told Nick about this yet, but so I was talking to Nick as I was like kind of scampering around like the hull, like the husk of this huge Infinity crash ship. Later on, several hours later, I somehow, like as I was just having fun exploring the open world, I found myself toward the tail end. I literally found the trench that the ship had made as it was crashing down onto like the mountainside itself. The detail in that path that the ship made in the ground is so detailed and insane. Like I didn't even know it was the ship at first. I'm thinking, oh, what is this? And I'm like running down, and like you could see like there are brutes and grunts and stuff that are like picking apart the wreckage and that sort of thing. You're like, what the heck? And I would pass by some huge afterburner that by itself, and I'm like, what is this over here? And there'd be another like component that was like just wrangled and twisted and everything. And I come across like the back of the ship, I'm like, what the heck is this? I suddenly realize, oh my gosh, this is the back part of the Infinity. And so I open up my map, and sure enough, that's what it is. And so the reason I'm describing all this is that it's a testament to some of the quality of the sandbox that 343 has done really well in the campaign itself, which I think Nick is also a big fan of, where you can literally just have fun exploring the world and it doesn't penalize you for doing that. In fact, I would go so far as to say it encourages you to want to like go around at your own pace and very organically discover certain things like that. Because in that instance, I did very little fighting. But then all of a sudden my mind started thinking about like what it was like when that ship crashed, and like filling in like my own personal canon that complemented the narrative that was already in play. And I don't know. I think that's a very special thing. That's a very unique game experience. That I don't know. I found myself all of a sudden having that aha moment as I was playing the game, where it's like, okay, now I understand what it is that they're doing with the campaign. I really dig this method to the madness. And as a result, just seeing what they're doing with like the Covenant and that sort of thing, I can let that pass for yet another game, having them in there. One final thought. I realized I totally digressed off of what I was going to say, which is the visual aesthetic of the Covenant and the Brutes, I feel need a do-over, because you have everything else that has really gotten a nice facelift. For some reason, those characters just look like toys. They don't have a realistic kind of look to them. They have like the Brutes have some goofy armor. The Elite's colors are super bright and that sort of thing. I just wish that they would have made more of an attempt to mimic what they've done with the pre-rendered Halo cinematics. Like if you think of like, some of like Halo 4's cinematics or Halo 5's pre-rendered cinematics, or even if you play Halo Wars and you look at those pre-rendered cinematics, those are gorgeous, hyper real looking cinematics that make the Elites or the Brutes look very, realistic.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they look intimidating, but also too, like in terms of, how there was like a very conscious decision to like make them as realistic as possible within the cinematics. Don't stop at the cinematics. Apply that into the game itself, because you have the means to do so. But anyway, I'll shut up and let Steve offer his thoughts on the campaign.
Hi.
Hi.
So, being not as far as you guys are. So, I'm very pleased to be in a very safe Halo world again. I think 343 knows that the community, the fan base, is divided on 4 and they're divided on 5. And so they thought, well, we're going to play this one, pretty close to the chest here. And we're not going to take as many risks. We're going to go with safe just to bring everybody together. And I think that's what they did, because, now that I'm outside of a building in the game, it feels very like Halo 1. It feels like I've been here before. But would I choose, hey, I've been here before and it looks better, or would I choose like, what are we doing here? If those are my options, I'd rather choose safe. Familiarity, yeah. That being said, I so far, at least in the beginning, this seems to be the first Halo where it doesn't really start off very exciting. Like it's a very boring, slow entry into the excitement. And I can think back to like Halo 3. If you asked me how the whole thing started, I could storyboard it and, cookie cutter, stick figure characters, how the whole thing played out with Cortana talking to you about what's going on, and what you see in the distance is a comment, and as she concludes what she's saying, that comment gets closer and the chorus builds, and then you're in this I get chills just thinking about it. And it's so exciting. And it's just not there really. And I can't say again, I'm in the beginning of the game. There's a lot left to go. So I'm sure it's going to build up into something. It just kind of started off a bit slow.
Sure.
I will say, being that I'm playing on the base system, what I would like to see is a bit more.
Well, the base system being the 2013 Xbox One, not even the Xbox One X.
Tried and true. Anyway, wouldn't it be cool if you had a lot more like forestry? And I'm thinking like Red Dead RDR2.
Mm-hmm.
So not necessarily that I need that specifically in here, but there's a lot of just open territory where it's just grass, a tree here and there. But I thought, man, how much more like Halo 3, where you walking through the forest, you got bushes, you got trees, you have big rocks that the Covenant can hide behind. I mean, the Ring is going to have a lot more than just barren grasslands with a hill here and there, and that's when I would like to feel I guess Halo become more lifelike in a way. And I don't want to take up too much time because I know we're kind of getting low, but the brutes, I feel you there because they seem like they're a bit cookie cutter, where and a bit cliche. Where okay, yeah, they're big and they're strong and they're hairy, and so all of them have to have a voice like this. We are the banners, I'm like,
Can you imagine?
Come on,
Come across one and it's like, we are the banners.
yeah, but that would have been funny. I don't know. Anyway. I think back to like Halo 2, where you had some of like the elder elites, and they had they looked different. And they had some variety like in the species, and the scripting was a lot better too. I mean, the scripting kind of seems
you're going to find
a bit
that
amateur. Yeah.
the script and the dialogue in this does get it builds upon itself. So as you get into the narrative, I think you're going to be happy.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff.
Well, that's reassuring.
Yeah, it gets
what I can say is, man, it's good just to be 117 only. And, I mean, his drive just to get the mission done, and he's not looking for rewards. He's not looking for someone to give him kudos here. This is who he is, and that drive for 117 is unlike any other game.
Right.
Period. And so it's nice to be back in those shoes again, I would say.
Well, and Nick, I want to get your thoughts on this, but when it comes to how this narrative has an interesting job where it needs to address what went on in Halo 4 with regards to Cortana and her rampancy, right? And then it has to tie up kind of the loose ends that Halo 5 was attempting to introduce as kind of like the moving forward canon, which failed. So they need to kind of like, let's tidy that up. And then at the same time, the third part is being able to introduce a brand new approach to the narrative itself. So it's like this kind of like 3-in-1 juggling act that they're having to do. And even though you obviously haven't beaten the game yet, how do you feel like they're doing, well, I guess it's kind of a two-part question. First of all, have you been exposed to a chunk of the narrative, or have you just been exploring the world? And number two, if you have been exposed to say a chunk of the narrative, what are your thoughts on how they've managed those three things?
Okay. I've been exposed to a fair bit. Like I said, I think I'm 3-4 missions in. And it is an interesting juggling act. I think the thing that's interesting, kind of going back to what Steve was saying with it, kind of like the beginning doesn't grab you the way that Halo 3 does, for instance, is we're seeing Master Chief in a completely different state than he's ever been in. He starts off being beaten.
Yeah.
And left for dead. He's lost his best friend, which you could also argue was his conscience, pardon me, I can talk, his conscience and his soul in Cortana, and was basically going on a mission to eradicate her. That's kind of like what they were doing before this. And it's a very interesting narrative because you are tying back to 4, and there is, I haven't gotten a lot of narrative yet that's really shown me what they're going to try and do with what happened with 5, other than what that the weapon was made to kind of handle that.
Right.
From what people remember of 5, here's where we're going.
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of it. And I mean, everybody recognizes that 5 probably is not the strongest in the series for sure. But yeah, we're seeing a different side. And that's actually been the thing I've enjoyed the most, is that we're seeing an extremely stoic side of Master Chief. He's always been stoic. He's always been a man of few words, but he's a haunted man. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you getting that impression? He's a haunted man. And
Yeah, I am too.
yeah, and they're doing a really good job. I mean, he's got this new AI that looks like Cortana, kind of sounds like Cortana, and he's got this wall up. He's got this wall up where he's just like, I'm not going to have this relationship with you. The dialogue's going to be mission only. I'm only going to tell you what you need to know. And you're seeing this man that's experienced loss, lots of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and he just keeps fighting. Like, he just keeps fighting through it, but he's experiencing loss. You know, I'd say it's akin to almost like a PTSD kind of. And it's really interesting that that's the way they're going with it. And I personally find that to be really fantastic for a narrative, really enjoying seeing this side and kind of seeing where it goes. I think that getting back on a Halo and finding out that, without giving too much away, the Banished are there looking for something other than to blow up the galaxy. We'll just leave it at that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're on a Halo again, but the end game is something different. I do think that they're doing a pretty decent job tying it together while also telling a new story that I think is a human story. And that's not something we've seen a lot with Master Chief. You don't see his human side. He's just kind of the invincible badass that never fails. And we're seeing something very different. And I find that to be refreshing, really, really refreshing. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very excited to see what they do with this narrative as it reaches the end. I have heard rumblings about how the ending apparently is awesome. I have made it a very meticulous mission to not spoil it for myself, but I have heard rumblings that apparently, like, what they're doing with the narrative, like, by the time you get to the end of this campaign, like, apparently, like, it's really, really awesome. So yeah. And in terms, I think I might be a little bit farther than you, Nick, in terms of the narrative. It is interesting to see how the weapon, for instance, that's what they call the AI that Master Chief comes into contact with. And that's really not a spoiler. They've been showing that in the trailers and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of the relationship, it is fun to see this AI that is much more naive than previous AIs like Cortana, and how that acts as a contrast to Master Chief, to Nick's point, is almost like as if he's like this grizzled war veteran that has like some form of PTSD or something, but like he's just been beaten down because of really losing Cortana, and that is one of the most like cherished, I would say, parts of the overall Halo canon is the relationship between Master Chief and Cortana. So
He needs a vacation.
he does. He definitely does. He needs a vacation.
I need a holiday.
So yeah, like
I feel like butter scraped across too much bread.
111 years old. You haven't aged a day. Anyway, I think we'll leave the narrative there for now because I don't want to spoil anything. I said, I have seen certain things that does put into context a reasonable excuse or reason why we are yet again with the Covenant. I will just bookend this by saying that in future Halo games, I don't want to see any more Covenant. I don't want to, I think there is an entire universe that is at Mr. John Spartan's fingertips, his gloved, armored fingertips. And so that means there are all kinds of awesome, wonderful stories to tell, brand new alien races and species to come across. Not only that, brand new alien planets to visit. How about them apples? Because again, it does kind of get a little old, once again, not to harp on the efforts that went into what we see in Halo Infinite with regards to the ring. It's a very beautiful place.
Oh, yeah.
But you want to, if you want to go from what could be a trip to Yosemite into seeing a truly alien landscape where we see Master Chief go to an alien planet, I think that would be a fresh injection into the series. It definitely would be something that I know I want to see for myself. I think it's safe to say you guys would as well.
Yeah, go fire up No Man's Sky. Give me some of those planets.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's pivot from that. One of the things I do want to talk about that is, I think, a very nice addition to what they've done to the Halo Infinite game is the FOBs, or the forward operational bases. I really like the thoughtfulness behind what they've done with this, in the sense that because you have an open world, you now essentially have these places where if you so choose, you can fast travel to. But it's not just limited to that. You have Marines that are stationed at their posts at these FOBs, and you have the ability, as you progress and you earn valor, you can slowly unlock different kinds of vehicles. So like, for instance, like basically this acts as an incentive for you as a player to go off on your own and do all these side missions or stumble upon things that are happening because you earn valor as you go along. That then unlocks various weapons and vehicles that you can call upon at your discretion at any given FOB. So to give you an idea, just last night, I unlocked the Scorpion tank. Which means that I can go to any FOB at any time in the world and say, yes, I'll take a Scorpion tank, please. And then the dropship comes down and drops a Scorpion tank. Let me tell you something, folks. That is very rewarding.
I've only gotten to the Warthog with the gun. That's where I'm at in the unlocks.
So,
spoiler, there's a Warthog?
Spoiler.
I'm sorry. I'm going to go now. My bad.
The thing is I did look at that, Nick, because I was actually perusing. Like they show once again, it's the same kind of model as like the Battle Pass thing, right? You have a glimpse as to like what you can unlock, and the Halo that you has the rocket packs on it, the Warthog.
Angel. Beautiful angel.
The Warthog that has the rocket launcher on it is essentially the last vehicle that you can unlock once you've obtained enough valor. And I want to be able to describe this because, for one, it's very exciting because we've never seen that in a Halo game before. Usually you would just happen upon like a Scorpion tank in the entire campaign of a previous Halo, and you're like, oh, this is awesome. It's fantastic because I love how it takes the sandbox mentality and ratchets it up by another notch, because suddenly now, as if I didn't have enough incentive to want to go out and explore, like to what Nick likes to do. Like he loves to not leave any stone unturned or any nook or cranny unexplored. Well, now you get this really, I don't know, like it's a logical reward. Like I just think it fits really well in the world of Halo. You have all these Marines that are stranded on this Halo ring. They're clearly going to have forward operation bases in addition to the one that they have as their established base. What say you, Nick?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I mean, like I said, for me, this is like, it's digital cocaine.
It
I'm
is.
hooked. I'm totally hooked, because it's like, okay, so you're telling me I've got a giant world to explore and I can go wherever I want, pretty much whenever I want. And I get rewarded for it, both in that, we haven't even talked about this. You can find unique versions of weapons you know and love.
I've heard about that.
Yeah. I'll just leave it at that, because I think it's a cool thing to stumble upon. It's a really neat thing. But yeah, you're rewarded for going out and just playing. And then you get back to these forward operating bases, and it's like, oh wow, I can get the battle rifle now. And I can just like switch to it whenever I want. And I can fast travel back here and then head off to another mission. You know, you've got the Marines that are there. You're unlocking vehicles, that are just immediately available. So it's like, initially you get, what is it, the Mongoose.
Yeah.
And you can zip around, which is great because it's super fast. So then it's like, okay, I need to get to the tower. Bwah, off you go. And a Marine hops on with you. And can I say one more thing about that? The commentary in this game is by far the best. What the grunts are saying all the time, I've like flat out laughed from some of the crap the grunts have said.
They're pretty vocal, aren't they?
Oh my gosh. And then your Marines are talking, and they'll talk trash back and forth to each other. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It creates a really real world, but I digress. Yeah, no, the forward operating bases really offer, it's like it's kind of like the camp in RDR, right? You go back to the camp, you get your stuff, you get fed, shave, and then you go back out to kick butt. You know, because in my case, RDR is a little bit too real. There's a little bit too much action going on there. But, you know, I stepped in a road apple.
Settle down with.
Yeah, there's no concubines. You find a grunt with a wig, and you have a romantic rendezvous.
Down for a second, and
but yeah, no, it does. It's really cool. It rewards you for exploring, for accomplishing side missions and main missions. And I'm just pretend you two aren't there as I continue my point.
You're doing great, Nick. Keep going. Just ignore us.
It's fantastic. Now, I love it, honestly. Like, I couldn't be more happy with the way that they've implemented how you are interacting with this new Halo. Yeah. And I think the forward operating bases provide a completely unique touch that, yeah, I mean, it's perfect. I don't know how else to put it, man. It's perfect. You just low on supplies, fast travel back, get what you need, go back out and continue the fight. Feels good.
Makes sense.
Well, and one of the things too about the FOBs is, in addition, so you have these different, I don't know what you call them. They're like these, basically these boxes that have these. Oh, that was a bong and a half there. Way to go!
Sort of figure eight. I don't know how to call it. It's just a.
I thought we were doing the YMCA, so I started doing that.
Box, a box with like, well, anyway, it has like a green holographic image of the weapon. That's, the assault rifle by default. It is worth noting that if you want to be able to, say, for instance, you have one fabricated for yourself, you can go, because they have 4 of them, and just get, like, say, for instance, let's say you have a sniper rifle. Well, the sniper rifle by default only gives you about 6 rounds. So if you want to max out your ammo on the sniper rifle, you can go to each one of those kiosks and make a sniper rifle, and it'll just take the ammo from each one of those. So now you have a sniper rifle with what, like between 16 to 20 rounds. So, I mean, it's really cool to be able to like have fun with the FOBs.
You see John Plow's wallet. Hey, I need more of these. Can I get a box of rounds? Oh, sir, we'll give them to you for free. Do the right thing, soldier. I'll pay for them.
Spartan credits.
Yeah, there you go.
Another vehicle that I don't know is new or not, but it's the Gun Goose. Is that new to Halo Infinite, Nick?
I think so. I don't recall there being a Gun Goose in 5.
Yeah.
So
it is. Yeah. It is actually really cool. Like, I think we have all, as fans, wondered what it would be like to be able to have some kind of gun on a mongoose and see how threatening that is. That is pretty cool, I must say. Like, it was one thing to have a buddy sit on the back and do some shooting and stuff, which, I mean, let's be real. Yeah, it's one thing to be AI, because the AI can actually hit, but if you're another player and you're on the back of it, it's next to impossible. However, the Gun Goose has these dual cannons on the front, and I must say there have been quite a few occasions where when I was at a FOB, I decided, I'm going to go for the Gun Goose.
I guess that kind of makes sense, because you had the Ghost, which was the Covenant, like single man operated thing. And then you had the Brute Chopper, single man operated thing. And then you had the Mongoose, was just like, no guns, don't shoot me, please. Just trying to like get away. So it makes sense to have like a human machine. Right. It makes sense to have kind of a human single operated machine of some sort.
And even piggybacking off of that, again, we haven't gone through the entire campaign narrative. Therefore, we don't know if there are a bunch of brand new vehicles or not within Halo Infinite. If there isn't, that I think is also something that I would love 343 to be able to work on, which is, we've had the tried and true classics of like the Scorpion tank or the Ghost or the Banshee or the Wraith, all of these vehicles, and we want them to stay. Like we don't want to get rid of them by any stretch. We just want to expand the different fleet, if you will, of different vehicles. And I know that they have the Wasp, which we've played in multiplayer. And again, this is actually a good example too, where like the Hornet apparently I don't think is in this game anymore, which is, again, it's an unfortunate tragedy, because the Hornet was right. I mean, it was really cool.
Hornet's fun.
So that is something that if I could give some unsolicited advice to 343, it would be that I would love to make sure that we continue to include all the different vehicles from the previous Halo games, and then continue to expand and have many different types of additional vehicles as well. One final thing, because I know we're low on time, is in terms of the narrative itself, another thing that I do think is worth or worthy of mention is I love being able to happen across various tablets that essentially help to drive the narrative in different directions. Like you'll hear like a sonar type of bleep sound that kind of leads you to where one of these things exists. And I honestly really do. I've always been a big fan of this ever since Batman Arkham Knight, the game, where, you know, in that game, you can pick up different types of cassette tapes or audio recordings from the psychiatrists that were interviewing these well-known rogues within the Batman universe, right? That really added another layer or another dimension to the storytelling within that game. And I feel like this is a completely welcome thing in Halo, where you have, like I said, you'll be exploring the world and you will come across different kinds. Not only are they human, but then you'll also have ones that are brute based as well, like with the Covenant and the Brutes. So you get kind of this omnipresent glimpse, if you will, into like what happened before the beginning of this game. It was like, for instance, like we were talking about how like we see Master Chief defeated at the beginning of this game, floating out in outer space, and we don't really understand what happened. We know there was some kind of battle or something going on. Picking up these like audio recordings basically begin to shed light as to what went down. Not only that, but then you also get like this kind of like behind the scenes understanding of what is going on with the Banished, with the Brutes in relation to the Covenant, how that's happening, what their motivation is. And it just acts as a nice companion piece to the overarching narrative, which I know you haven't really had much experience with because you've just made it into the ring itself. But Nick, have you come across many of those?
I haven't missed one yet, baby.
Excellent.
Because I explore everything.
Do you love it? Do you really enjoy coming across it and listening to it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for me, it goes back even farther than Arkham, I think, to BioShock, because you had the little tapes in BioShock. Uh-huh. And yeah, I've always enjoyed that kind of, narrative where it offers an alternative, where it isn't necessarily a cutscene. You're still playing, right? You can still be playing and doing things and listening to this thing as you go. And it does a really good job of fleshing things out, because yeah, you're getting to see what were the final moments like on the UNSC Infinity, and what happened once they touched ground on Halo. And then, yeah, exactly. What are the Banished up to? Why did they separate from the Covenant? You're finding all these things out through these audio tapes. And yeah, it provides a nice little glimpse that you wouldn't get otherwise if you were just relying on, point A to point B narratives, go here, do this. Oh, the Banished are here, stop them. It gives it a lot more depth. And I'll say this for finding those kinds of things. If you're an explorer like me, use the scan feature, look for yellow, go find the yellow.
Are you familiar with the scan?
I know what the scan is, Russ. I'm paying attention.
I'm just saying, I really didn't start using the scan until Nick actually brought it up. And all of a sudden
scan
I was like,
constantly. That's the key, baby.
What'd you say, Nick? Like you literally scan like every 10 meters?
Yeah, I walk like 5 to 10 steps, scan, look around. Walk 5, 10 steps, scan, look around. And so far, like every place I've been because that's the cool thing. You can go into the TAC map, which we haven't really talked about this. So you have this tactical map where you can see kind of like everything that's available to you, the whole Halo. And it'll tell you in each mission kind of like how many skulls are in that mission, how many of those little Vidoc tapes are there, Spartan lockers, which are another thing you can unlock and find. It'll tell you how many are in the area. And so then it's up to you to just go find them. But I'm like, if you tell me how many there are, I will search until I find them. I will spend hours to find these things. And I have. And scanning. That's the ticket. You want to find them? Keep an eye on your TAC map. Scan often. Look for the yellow.
It's very true. It's very true. Pressing down on the D-pad. Do it often and you will have a nice little scan. I love how when you scan it and you are around something, like it does in fact pop up on the open world map.
Makes sense.
It's a very easy to use map. Very much deserved kudos to the UI team on that.
Yeah, very
well,
true.
we're out of time, but I do want to end this with concluding thoughts on our impressions of Halo so far. Let's start with you, Steve.
Well, I think I kind of sort of summed everything up in my last statement, but I do feel like this is a safer Halo, but I would rather, again, like I said earlier, I'd rather choose that than a direction that's going to divide the community because, I'm similar to Nick. I originally left the PlayStation wagon to join the Microsoft Xbox wagon because of Halo, and I bought my Xbox One with the downloaded Master Chief Collection, and I missed the boat on this one to get my limited edition, Xbox Series X, and nowhere to be found for this. But I do love Halo, and I do love John Spartan. I do love this world, and I applaud 343 for continuing to give the community something fresh and something new. Even if they've fallen down in the last couple of games, they're listening to the community, and that's not something that's very common anymore. And the community wants to spend money. Maybe not as much money like that. I probably wouldn't spend as much money, but people like, other people out there, Nick, for example, would spend the money, for extras in the game. And, I would hope that they don't stop at what we've already experienced with the multiplayer and the campaign, but I hope there is other DLC out there and that we can use and we can see and explore and make use of the better hardware that we have. Because I think that we would like to see more. This is a safe bet, which is fine. But maybe some of the other games utilized a lot of the hardware to make it better and more beautiful and more colorful and I would like to see that maybe here. I would love to get the DLC if that were to happen. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, this is a step in the right direction. I'll leave it at that.
Nick, how about you?
All right. Kind of like high level. Multiplayer, I feel solid. For the most part, I think that there's some tweaks that need to be made in the store. I think prices are still a bit high, and there should be more opportunities to unlock things through gameplay, especially through campaign, since a lot of people are paying either through Game Pass or buying the campaign itself. Also, one other thing that we didn't talk about on that, they need to implement a way to turn off crossplay so that the Xbox community can just play with the Xbox community and keep the PC and their hacks and bots out of it. Not to mention mouse and keyboard guys, they're on a whole nother level. But aside from that, multiplayer, very solid. And overall, I'd say a good experience. Campaign has been pretty much everything I wanted and more. My complaints are very similar to yours, Russ, that I do kind of wish that we had a new enemy versus a recycled enemy. But I also am not caring as much as we've gotten into the narrative and into the story and into the world. It's mattered less and less to me with each passing hour. And going to an open sandbox that rewards and encourages exploration, I think was just the most brilliant idea that they have had for this franchise in its 20 years. I actually will say between how open it is and the grappling hook, it will be hard for me to go back and play another Halo game, honestly. I'll be wanting those things. And it's going to be something that I look forward to seeing how they continue to expand it in the future, hopefully with DLC. I really hope they support this campaign in open sandbox, because by making it open, they provided an opportunity that they can just keep throwing stuff in it and it'll totally make sense within the world. And that is a great thing. And so I'd like to spend as much time in this world as possible. And that's a testament to what they've built.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's interesting how this whole thing kind of started out, because it was a bit of a discombobulated experience for me, just in terms of, once again, the order of operations of having multiplayer come out first, then campaign coming out later, and then co-op coming out after that. Now that I have the campaign in hand and I've put a certain amount of hours into it, 343 has done a miraculous comeback kid job with this, because with Halo 5, I was very disappointed. I was concerned, honestly, about the future of Halo and how 343 may not be the custodian that we all thought they were worthy of. And I'm just being honest and blunt about that.
Yeah, I agree.
After playing what I've played so far, I'm relieved and thrilled to say that is not the case, that actually 343 has their game face on when they made this game. There is a metric ton to appreciate within the campaign itself. This campaign is a very much authentic, true to form return to the glory days of what made Halo Halo. I think that the addition of the different things like the grapple hook, the FOBs, the open world, even some of the stuff that I can't even really go into detail about because they are spoilers. My goodness, like I find myself reaching for the Xbox controller just to continue playing in this wonderful sandbox that they have created. And that is no small feat. I'm very happy that they took the year that they needed to because they listened to the fans. It is an extremely polished game. Like if you are going through the campaign and you see what you see, you experience what you experience, they really put a ton of TLC into each and every little thing, whether it's the audio or the visuals or how tight the gameplay is. I mean, it is amazing to me like how they drifted off in Halo 5 where like literally I'm playing the game, I'm doing combat, and it doesn't feel like Halo, to now it quintessentially feels like Halo. So my hat's off to the game designers and the folks for doing all of that. I'm very excited to be able to see where this narrative goes, as I'm very invested with the relationship between Cortana and Master Chief. And in this instance, we have the weapon now that has kind of come into the spotlight as well. So yeah, like I'm very happy with what I'm seeing so far. And as a result, as I figured would happen, when it comes to being able to invest as many hours as I have in the campaign and having more of an understanding of what the purpose is of like the various vehicles or weapons, that sort of thing, jumping back into the multiplayer feature, I feel so much more ready to be able to be efficient and help my team out as I was in the past. And there are many other types of things that we can talk about. Like one of the things I will mention quickly is in the campaign, there is an abundance of weapons everywhere. Like it's amazing like how I never, especially despite the fact that it is an open world, there are so many different types of weapons that are sprinkled throughout. I am never without choice versus in multiplayer where it's like,
Where is everything?
Yeah, I have like the assault rifle and my pistol, and my goodness, like maybe on like a freak accident, I'll make a left turn and there will be like some sort of weapon, which I'll only hold on to for like 2 seconds before like 5 other people descend upon my position and take me out. So please, 343, if you are listening, let's add some more weaponry as well as vehicles into those multiplayer maps, because my goodness, it's a little sparse at the moment. Having said that, though, I'm just going to end it with the fact that I'm very, very happy. I'm in a sweet spot right now with the campaign and the narrative where I have now realized what the team was trying to do. And let me just tell you, they have succeeded in doing that, because it is very much a successful return to form. I want to thank our good old buddy, Nick, for coming on the show. This is actually the first time that we have put together kind of a video version. I know when we were audio only that we had him on, you could hear the sultry, velvety sound of his voice. But now that we are on video, we're on YouTube and Rumble and all the rest of it, now we can actually have the means.
Can have a 3-way.
Yeah.
Should I sing the song?
with the honey in the middle, there's some leeway. Oh my gosh, that what?
Every just great in a 1, 2, 3 way.
YouTube copyright right there.
He knows.
Oh no,
that song came out in like 2010 or something. My goodness, memories are flooding in. I'm gonna try and I gotta end this. Anyway, thank you so much, Nick, for coming on. We'll have to have you come back on in the very near future.
Indeed.
That wraps up this episode of Joygasm. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to check out patreon.com/Joygasm, where you can enjoy exclusive perks and early access to the show, not to mention continue financially helping us do this show. Also, make sure you push that subscribe button. Maybe smash that notification
Maybe
bell.
grapple it, Russ.
Oh, grapple hook the Oh my goodness! What else? What else we
Spider-Man
got?
style.
What's the word? You crawl on it. You lift yourself
Clamber.
up. Clamber.
Well, how about we grapple hook the subscribe button? Maybe clamber on the notification bell. That was awesome, Steve. Thank you so much.
Hey, I bring it sometimes.
That way you will not miss a single episode of Joygasm, which drops once a week every week. You can also do a search for @Joygasm TV on any social media platform of your preference. We're on just about all of them.
What's social media?
Last but not least, do a search for Joygasm TV on Twitch to see us stream our Halo gaming adventures live in addition to other games every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time.
When it works.
Yeah.
When it works.
We'll see you all next week.